Imagine being in an apparently innocent conversation with a married man. He smiles, looks into your eyes, and asks a simple question. So simple it almost seems harmless. But seconds later, you feel a chill. Why does that question keep echoing inside you as if it were calculated to play with your mind? Carl Jung said that true manipulation does not happen in grand gestures, but in the small cracks of language, when someone slips a trigger into the dialogue that can reach your unconscious. And it is precisely at this point that many get lost, confusing curiosity with connection, interest with seduction, trust with a trap. What almost no one realizes is that there are questions a married man should never ask, unless his real intention is manipulation. These 5 questions may seem ordinary, but they hide a much deeper psychological purpose: to reveal how far you are willing to go, to test your vulnerability, and to trap you in an invisible game. Today, you will discover exactly what they are. The game begins with the first question. It usually begins in a moment so ordinary that you almost miss it. A married man with the ring on his hand and the image of stability around him leans in and asks something that seems harmless. His tone is soft, his smile natural, and the words appear to be nothing more than curiosity. But Carl Jung warned that manipulation is never obvious. It slips quietly into small spaces, hidden in gestures and simple phrases. That first question is not neutral. It is a signal, a test, a doorway into a game you did not agree to play. The importance of this first step cannot be overstated. It is not about the content of the question, but about the intention that shapes it. When someone asks in this way, they are not only seeking information, they are seeking permission. They want to know how far they can step into your inner world without being noticed. If you answer too quickly, if you give away more than you intended, you silently open the door wider. That is the real power of the first question. It is a measurement of your awareness. Jung explained that human beings project their hidden sides, their shadows, onto others. A married man who uses this strategy often carries inner conflicts, boredom, guilt, loneliness, or unmet desire. Instead of dealing with these directly, he places them into questions that seem innocent. Without realizing it, you are invited to hold pieces of his shadow. This is why the moment feels heavier than it should. The words seem light, but the energy behind them is not. The first question often comes wrapped in flattery. It may sound like he is truly noticing you, paying attention in a way others do not. Sometimes it even feels like he is letting you into a private corner of his mind, sharing something that seems personal. But beneath that surface, the purpose is not honesty. It is strategy. The real question is not what he says, but what he means. Can I cross the line without you stopping me? This is the quiet nature of manipulation. It rarely pushes hard in the beginning. It whispers, it charms. It gives you the sense of control while slowly taking it away. By the time most people realize what is happening, the game is already far along. The first question is the opening move, and once it lands, the rest becomes easier. Jung taught that awareness is the only true defense against such shadows. To recognize the hidden motive is to take away its power. This is why you must pay attention not only to what is asked, but to how it makes you feel. Do you sense tension? Do you feel like you are being pulled to reveal more than you want? Do you notice a pressure that does not fit the moment? These sensations are not random. They are signs from your deeper self. Jung believed instincts are the language of the unconscious, and when they speak, you should listen. Another truth is that questions shape thoughts before answers are spoken. The unconscious begins to respond the instant a question is asked. That means influence is already at work. You may feel like the ideas forming in your mind are your own, but they are guided by the way the words were framed. This is what makes the first move so powerful. It directs your energy before you realize it. So how can you protect yourself? The first step is to pause. Do not feel the need to answer instantly. Manipulation thrives in speed. A quick reply is a doorway opening without thought. A pause, however, is resistance. It shows that you are awake, that you are not a passive player in someone else's game. Silence unsettles those who rely on charm and pressure. The second step is to remember that you control your boundaries. No matter how kind the words sound, you decide what you share. Questions may be shaped to make you feel obligated, but you are not. Choosing to withhold to keep your space clear is strength. Jung emphasized that once a shadow is seen, it cannot control you. The moment you recognize the test, you refuse the role it offers. Finally, remind yourself of this. The first question is not simply conversation. It is a move with purpose. By naming it for what it is, you break its power. Light dissolves darkness, and awareness dissolves manipulation. When you refuse to play, the game ends before it can even begin. The mask of innocent curiosity. Curiosity looks harmless at first glance. When someone asks about your day, your feelings, or your opinions, it often feels safe, even flattering. A married man may lean toward you with a gentle smile and speak as if he only wants to know you better. On the surface, it seems innocent. But Carl Jung reminded us that the unconscious hides motives under soft disguises. A question that feels light may actually carry intention. What appears as interest may, in truth, be a step into manipulation. The mask is powerful because it connects to something natural in all of us. Since childhood, we have been taught that when people ask, it means they care. Questions equal closeness. Interest means safety. That belief makes us lower our guard. A manipulative question rarely feels threatening. It is soft, polite, sometimes even charming. By the time you realize something is strange, you may have already shared more than you intended. This is why the mask of curiosity is so dangerous. It feels ordinary while hiding control. Jung explained that questions are never neutral. The very moment one is asked, your unconscious begins to move. Ideas rise, emotions shift, thoughts take shape. Even before you speak, you are already responding internally. The manipulator knows this. He does not always need your spoken answer. He only needs to guide your focus and stir your feelings. What seems like freedom of choice is actually a path built for you. The direction is not yours. It belongs to the one who shaped the question. When curiosity is only a mask, it is rarely about knowing you. It is about testing you. The words may sound caring, but the purpose is to see where your boundaries lie. What will you reveal? How much are you willing to share? Each answer becomes a marker, a signal that shows how open or vulnerable you may be. Wrapped in friendliness, the question feels like connection. In truth, it is measurement. With every response, you provide small pieces of a private map that should remain yours. Projection makes this even more dangerous. Jung taught that people cast hidden parts of themselves onto others. A married man who uses these tactics may be carrying guilt, frustration, or desire he does not face openly. Instead of confronting those shadows, he projects them outward through questions. You become the mirror. You hold pieces of his struggle. The conversation feels like yours, but it is also his story being played out on your stage. You respond not only for yourself, but for the role he unconsciously wants you to play. The mask works because it feels gentle. Curiosity looks like kindness. It creates the illusion of closeness. But true curiosity has balance. It moves in both directions, with space for both voices. Manipulative curiosity feels different. It is one-sided. The questions keep circling back to you, drawing more while little is offered in return. That imbalance is the giveaway. What pretends to be care is really extraction. What should feel mutual becomes a process of taking. How can you see through it? Begin by listening to yourself in the moment. Notice the effect the question has on you. Do you feel a sudden pressure to explain more than you planned? Do you sense that the talk is flowing in his favor, not yours? These signals matter. Jung believed that subtle impressions are the voice of the unconscious. They may appear as a small unease, but they are warnings. Trust them. They speak before logic can catch up. Another way to break the mask is to remember your choice. You are never required to answer everything. You can pause. You can redirect. You can decline. Manipulators rely on speed. Quick answers give them entry. But when you slow down, when you breathe before speaking, you disturb the pattern. The pause itself is power. It shows you are awake, not easily guided. Jung taught that freedom begins with awareness of choice. In that awareness, the mask loses strength. Finally, hold this truth firmly. Genuine curiosity does not leave you uneasy. If a question creates tension, if it feels like pressure rather than care, the innocence is gone. The mask has slipped, and once you see it, it no longer controls you. Jung's wisdom reminds us that shadows cannot survive in light. The mask of innocent curiosity may look soft, but when revealed, it crumbles. Awareness ends the game. Your clarity becomes protection, and your freedom remains yours. If you want to go deeper into these hidden patterns and finally understand how your own mind protects or sabotages you, there is a simple path. It's called the Jung Method, and you'll find the link pinned in the first comment. When he tests your emotional limits, there is a moment when curiosity shifts into pressure. The tone may still be soft, the words may still sound harmless, but the meaning begins to cut deeper. A married man who is seeking control will not be satisfied with surface answers. He wants to know where your emotional limits are, Carl Jung explained that the unconscious is constantly tested in relationships. The test is not always open or obvious. Sometimes it arrives as gentle questions that carry heavy weight. What feels like connection can quickly become an assessment of how far he can push. Emotional testing works because it is subtle. Instead of asking directly for what he wants, he measures your reactions. The married man may frame questions in a way that draws out your feelings. He wants to see if you will share sadness, loneliness, or secret desires. By doing so, he discovers which strings can be pulled. Jung noted that manipulation often begins with small probes. These are like taps on the wall of your inner world, checking for cracks. If you respond, the cracks widen. If you stay silent, the wall holds. This testing is not about genuine care. It is about access. Each answer becomes a signal. Do you open up quickly? Do you reveal private wounds? Do you show hesitation? All of these responses tell him something important. They give him a map of your emotions. Once he has that map, he knows where to step. He can press the right buttons to stir feelings of trust, guilt, or attraction. It may feel like intimacy, but it is actually strategy. The danger of this stage is that it plays with your humanity. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone has feelings they long to share. When someone appears to ask with empathy, it feels natural to open up. But Jung warned that when another person uses your openness as a tool, your own energy turns against you. What was supposed to bring connection instead becomes a doorway to control. Emotional testing often hides inside harmless questions. How are you feeling today? Or do you ever feel misunderstood? Can sound like care. Yet when asked repeatedly or with intensity, the goal shifts. It is no longer about knowing you. It is about finding your weak points. A manipulator knows that once your emotions are open, logic becomes softer, boundaries blur. You start to feel closer to him. Even when you know he is not available, the testing bends your inner balance. Jung described this as the play of shadow. The married man projects his unmet needs into you and then measures how well you carry them. If you absorb too much, you begin to confuse his shadow with your own feelings. This is the trap. You start to wonder why you feel so drawn, why his words matter more than they should. It is not love. It is not true care. It is the result of your emotional world being tested and used. So how can you recognize when your limits are being pushed? Notice how your energy shifts during conversation. Do you leave feeling lighter or do you leave feeling drained? Do you sense that the questions dig deeper each time, moving closer to parts of you you normally guard? These are signs. Jung believed that awareness of such patterns is the first defense. When you observe the process, you step out of it. Another defense is the strength of pause. You do not need to answer quickly. Testing only works when you respond on impulse. When you slow down, when you reflect before speaking, you deny the manipulator the instant access he seeks. That small pause is a declaration. You control your inner world. Finally, remind yourself of this truth. Genuine interest respects limits. It does not need to press deeper than you allow. If someone keeps testing, keeps circling around your emotions, it is no longer care. It is control disguised as closeness. Jung's wisdom shows that once you see this, the game loses its grip. Emotional tests cannot harm you when you recognize them. By standing firm, you protect your energy, your clarity, and your worth, the hidden code of sudden interest. Sometimes attention arrives like a spotlight. One moment you are unnoticed, the next you are the center of sudden focus. A married man may lean closer, ask questions quickly, and act as though he has just discovered something rare in you. At first, this rush of interest feels flattering. It feels like recognition you have been waiting for. But Carl Jung warned that when energy shifts so dramatically, it often signals a hidden motive. Sudden interest is rarely accidental. It is a code, a pattern that reveals more beneath the surface. The code hides in the way the attention begins. Genuine care grows slowly, step by step, with patience. It is built through consistent presence and steady words. But when a man already tied to another relationship floods you with immediate intensity, it is usually not about true discovery. It is about projection. Jung explained that people often project their unmet needs outward. What appears to be admiration is often his own dissatisfaction seeking an outlet. The light he shines on you is not fully yours. It is a reflection of his shadow. This tactic works because people naturally long to be seen. Being noticed triggers deep emotional responses. Your unconscious reads the shift as proof of importance. The manipulator counts on this reflex. By showering you with focus, he lowers your guard. You begin to feel chosen, unique, even extraordinary. Yet the surge is not personal. It is strategic. The sudden rush is not about building connection. It is about measuring how easily you can be disarmed. The attention often moves in waves. One day he is distracted or cold. The next he is filled with excitement for your presence. This swing is intentional. Jung explained that the psyche is drawn to contrast. The sharp difference between absence and intensity creates drama. That drama grips the unconscious. It makes you crave the high of the spotlight, even when it comes after stretches of distance. The inconsistency hooks you deeper than steady interest ever could. What looks like passion is actually conditioning. Exaggeration is another sign of this code. Compliments may feel too large for the context. Promises may come too soon. Insights may sound dramatic as if rehearsed. These are not slips. They are deliberate methods meant to create impact. Jung emphasized that symbols shape the unconscious. The exaggerations become symbols. They make the connection appear larger than reality, when in fact it is theater. How do you recognize the code? Pay attention to rhythm. True interest grows with steadiness. Manipulative interest moves suddenly, sharply, without balance. If you sense that attention rises too fast, trust that instinct. Your unconscious is alerting you that something is off. Jung believed instincts speak before logic does. The first uneasy feeling is not weakness, it is wisdom. Pressure is another clue. Authentic attention allows room for your pace. It waits, it respects space. But sudden intensity often demands speed. It wants answers and emotions without delay. That urgency is not admiration. It is control disguised as excitement. When you slow down, when you breathe before responding, you step outside the rhythm. The tactic weakens. The spotlight loses power when you refuse to rush into it. Real recognition does not feel unstable. It does not flare up overnight and vanish without reason. It grows like steady light. If the attention you receive feels like whiplash, it is not genuine. It is manipulation dressed as care. Jung's insight is simple. What comes from shadow carries extremes, but what comes from truth carries balance. If the rhythm feels off, the source is not light, it is shadow. The best defense is awareness. Do not confuse sudden focus with true value. Do not let sharp intensity blind you. When attention erupts without history or foundation, it is not love. It is a test. The moment you see the code, it loses strength. Light reveals shadow and exposure ends control. By naming the game, you break it. You keep your clarity no matter how brightly the spotlight shines. The hidden code of sudden interest is one of the most convincing disguises. It looks like admiration, it feels like destiny. But once you step back, the truth is clear. It is not about who you are. It is about what he seeks. Jung's wisdom shows that when the shadow is exposed, it cannot rule. Freedom is not found in the rush of attention. Freedom is found in clarity, in steady awareness, in the power to see through disguise. That clarity protects you, steadies you, and keeps you free. The words that reveal control. Control does not always arrive as commands. It often arrives as words that sound soft, caring, even protective. A married man who seeks to guide your emotions may not tell you directly what to do. Instead, he frames his language in ways that create pressure without showing it. Carl Jung explained that language is one of the strongest carriers of unconscious intention. Words can slip past the defenses of logic and reach straight into feeling. What looks like ordinary speech can actually be a coded attempt at control. One clear tactic is suggestion disguised as kindness. He may say, "You deserve someone who really understands you." Or, "I just worry about how others treat you." On the surface, these words appear generous. But underneath, they shape your perception. The suggestion is that he is the one who understands, that his presence is the safe place. Jung warned that projection often hides inside flattering words. The married man projects his desire to feel important, and his words push you to see him as unique. Another method is planting doubt. Phrases like, "Are you sure you really feel that way?" Or, "Maybe you don't see the whole picture," seem harmless, but they create hesitation. They make you question your own emotions. The goal is not understanding but softening your certainty. When you are unsure, you are easier to guide. Jung taught that when the unconscious is unsettled, it searches for outside anchors. The manipulator positions himself as that anchor, using doubt as the opening. Control also appears through selective praise. Compliments can be used like tools. He might praise you for being honest, but only when you reveal something personal. He might highlight your strength, but only when it aligns with his narrative. The praise is conditional. It is meant to reward behavior that gives him more access. Over time, you begin to chase the words, adjusting yourself to earn them again. Jung compared this process to conditioning. Repeated responses shape patterns, and patterns hold power over choice. Subtle guilt is another sign. He may phrase things like, "I just thought you trusted me," or "I didn't expect you to hide things from me." These words create invisible chains. You feel pushed to explain, to prove yourself, even though you owe him nothing. Guilt is one of the strongest forms of shadow control. Jung explained that guilt ties us to others through unconscious bonds, even when those bonds are unhealthy. The manipulator uses guilt to keep you engaged, to keep you giving energy where you should not. Notice also how certain phrases demand emotional labor. "You always make me feel calmer," or "You're the only one I can talk to," sound like compliments. In truth, they place responsibility on you. You become the caretaker of his moods. The weight shifts quietly from his inner struggles to your shoulders. Jung believed that when one person transfers responsibility for their inner life onto another, it creates imbalance. The words may sound sweet, but they trap you into roles you never agreed to play. How can you recognize when words are being used to control? Listen not only to meaning but to effect. Do the phrases make you feel freer, or do they make you feel tied down? Do you sense that you are being lifted or quietly burdened? Jung taught that the unconscious speaks through feelings before logic. The body often notices the trap before the mind names it. Trust the unease. It is your warning. Defending yourself begins with clarity. You do not need to argue with every phrase. Simply recognizing the pattern removes its power. When you see that praise is conditional, you stop chasing it. When you see that guilt is a tool, you refuse to carry it. When you see that responsibility is being shifted, you hand it back. Awareness turns invisible strings into visible ones, and visible strings can be cut. Remember this: real care never comes wrapped in manipulation. Genuine words create space, not pressure. They encourage freedom, not dependence. If the language you hear makes you smaller, weaker, or more uncertain, it is not kindness. It is control hidden behind polite tones. Jung's wisdom shows that once you expose the disguise, the words lose their grip. The married man's control rests not in force but in suggestion, in carefully shaped language that enters without resistance. Once you see it, you step out of the spell. Words only rule when they are hidden. When revealed, they are powerless. Awareness is the shield that breaks their hold, and with it you remain clear, strong, and free. The question that demands more than an answer. Some questions are not really questions. They are doors, crafted in such a way that stepping through changes the balance between you and the one who asked. A married man who uses this tactic will not be satisfied with a simple yes or no. His words are shaped to pull you deeper, to make you explain, defend, or reveal more than you planned. Carl Jung explained that the unconscious reacts strongly when we feel forced to justify ourselves. The moment you start explaining beyond the surface, the other person, these questions are designed to stretch you. They may sound gentle, but the structure forces you to expand. Why do you feel that way? Or what does that mean for you? Can sound like interest. Yet the purpose is not understanding, it is leverage. The married man does not want your short reply. He wants elaboration. Each added detail becomes a thread he can hold. By answering fully, you hand him material that can be used to guide, influence, or pressure you later. The hidden danger is obligation. When a question carries the weight of "explain yourself," silence feels wrong. You sense pressure to respond. Jung noted that this is where manipulation hides, in the urge to over-explain. The more you speak, the more you reveal your inner world. And once revealed, it can be used against you. What began as a casual moment becomes a map of your vulnerabilities. These questions also reshape your emotions. By asking in a way that demands depth, the manipulator makes you relive feelings as you describe them. You are not only telling your story, you are experiencing it again. This gives him the chance to observe, to learn which memories or wounds stir the strongest reaction. Jung warned that the psyche carries powerful symbols tied to emotion. Whoever controls when those symbols are triggered gains invisible influence. Another aspect of this tactic is the false sense of intimacy it creates. Because you are the one speaking, you may feel closer to him. You believe he is giving you space when in fact he is taking. Every answer becomes a resource he can use later. The intimacy feels real, but it is one-sided. He knows more about you than you know about him, and imbalance always favors control. This imbalance deepens with time. The more you explain, the more he can predict how you think. He learns which topics make you hesitate, which memories soften you, Which fears make you defensive? Jung described this as the manipulation of archetypes. Repeated exposure to the same symbolic triggers shapes behavior. Once he knows which themes move you most, he can press them again, controlling without raising his voice. How can you defend yourself against questions that demand more? The first step is awareness. Notice when you feel pushed to elaborate. If a simple answer is enough but you feel guilty giving it, pause. That guilt is the signal. Jung taught that the unconscious alerts us through discomfort. If speaking feels heavier than it should, you may already be stepping into the trap. The second step is permission to stay brief. You are not required to explain everything. A short reply is still an answer. Silence is also a response. The manipulator thrives on your need to fill space. Break the pattern by letting silence remain. What feels uncomfortable at first is actually protection. It shows you own your words rather than letting them be pulled from you. The third step is remembering that balance is the measure of truth. Real care does not need endless explanation. Genuine interest respects the boundary of a short answer. If someone continually pushes you to go deeper, to uncover layers you did not intend to share, it is not love, it is strategy. Jung's wisdom shows that once you recognize this, the spell breaks. The question loses its grip and your energy returns. The question that demands more than an answer is not about knowledge, it is about control. Once you see it clearly, it cannot hold you. Awareness is your shield. With it, you remain steady, strong, and free. By refusing to be pulled into endless explanation, you keep ownership of your story. Jung reminded us that once shadows are exposed, they lose power. Seeing this tactic for what it is ensures your truth remains yours alone. The mirror of your own vulnerabilities. One of the most powerful tools in manipulation is reflection. A married man who seeks control may act as though he understands your feelings perfectly. He listens, nods, and repeats your words back to you with slight changes as if holding up a mirror. At first, this feels comforting. You think, finally someone who gets me. But Carl Jung warned that projection often tricks us. When another person reflects too much of what we show, it is not empathy, it is strategy. The mirror is built to reveal your vulnerability. This tactic works because it makes you feel less alone. When your thoughts and emotions are echoed, you sense connection. Yet the mirror does not actually add anything new. It does not bring insight or balance. It simply reflects what you already revealed with enough variation to feel profound. The effect is strong. You believe the other person sees the real you. In truth, he is only showing you what you handed over. Jung explained that the unconscious craves recognition and mirrors feed that hunger. The danger is that reflection lowers your defenses. When someone mirrors you, you relax. You stop questioning motives because you feel understood. This is when manipulation deepens. The married man can guide the talk in directions he wants, all while making you think it was your idea. Each echoed word draws you closer, until you confuse imitation with intimacy. What feels like shared truth is often carefully shaped repetition. Another layer of this tactic is exaggerating your struggles. If you admit to feeling tired, he may respond, "Yes, you're exhausted." No one sees how much you carry. If you say you are lonely, he may answer, "Exactly, you're completely isolated." The mirror amplifies your pain, making it more dramatic than you described. This heightens emotion and ties you more closely to him. Jung noted that shadow feeds on exaggeration. What was a passing feeling becomes a defining wound once mirrored back with intensity. This also creates dependency. If he always seems to understand your deepest feelings, you may start turning to him for validation. You begin to rely on his reflection to know yourself. But the more you depend on an outside mirror, the less you trust your own clarity. Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires standing apart from projections, not drowning in them. A false mirror blocks growth by keeping you tied to someone else's version of your story. The mirror can also shape your choices. When your words come back to you slightly shifted, you may feel as though the idea was always yours. For example, if you express doubt, he might mirror it back as certainty. Yes, deep down you know this isn't right. Suddenly his influence enters your mind disguised as your own thought. Jung called this identification with the shadow, when what is foreign to you begins to feel internal. You carry his influence without noticing it. How can you protect yourself from the mirror? The first step is to listen closely to repetition. If someone often echoes your words instead of adding perspective, be cautious. Reflection without depth is not empathy. It is mimicry. Jung believed real connection shows itself in fresh insight, not recycled phrases. The second step is to notice exaggeration. If your feelings return to you louder, heavier, or more dramatic than you first expressed, pause. Ask yourself, are these truly my emotions or am I accepting an inflated version? Awareness cuts the mirror's spell. When you see the distortion, you reclaim ownership of your feelings. The third step is building trust in your own perception. You do not need constant confirmation. Genuine strength grows from within. Jung reminded us that the self carries its own wisdom. When you lean on your inner voice, outside mirrors lose their grip. Finally, remember, real empathy is active, not passive. It does not simply echo. It adds care, clarity, and balance. If someone only reflects you, they are not walking beside you. They are using your words as material. Jung's wisdom shows that once you recognize the mirror, you no longer mistake it for intimacy. The mirror of vulnerabilities is powerful because it feels so real. But when you expose it, the illusion fades. You see that what was given back to you was never true connection. It was strategy. And once you see it, you cannot be controlled by it. Awareness frees you from the mirror, and in that freedom you find your own reflection. Steady, whole, and entirely yours. The silent question that stays in your mind. Some questions do not end when the conversation ends. They linger. A married man skilled in subtle manipulation may drop a question so carefully that it follows you long after he is gone. It may be something simple. Do you ever wonder if you deserve more? Or what would happen if you truly listened to your heart? The words are few, but the echo is endless. Carl Jung explained that the unconscious holds on to symbols and puzzles longer than it holds on to facts. The silent question works because it becomes. This tactic is dangerous precisely because it is quiet. Unlike direct pressure, it does not push you in the moment. It plants a seed instead. Days later, you may still be turning it over, asking yourself what it means. The manipulator counts on this delayed effect. He does not need to force you. You will carry the question for him, watering it with your own energy. Jung compared such patterns to complexes, ideas that lodge themselves in the psyche and grow stronger with attention. The silent question also works by creating emotional tension. Because it is not fully answered, it feels incomplete. The mind dislikes incompleteness. You keep returning to it, searching for closure. Each return strengthens its grip. The manipulator knows that the more you think, the more space he occupies in your inner world. Even in his absence, his presence remains. Another layer of this tactic is how it blurs responsibility. You may believe the question came from you, not from him. Because it echoes inside your own mind, you may forget its source. This makes the influence even stronger. Jung warned that when we cannot trace an idea back to its origin, we often assume it belongs to us. The manipulator hides inside your own thoughts, shaping your feelings while remaining unseen. This silent influence can also create longing. The question often carries a suggestion of possibility. Something missing, something more. What if your life could change? What if you are meant for something different? Such phrasing makes you restless. It paints your current state as incomplete. Jung taught that symbols of possibility awaken desire. When that desire is stirred without direction, it seeks an outlet, and the manipulator positions himself as that outlet. How can you defend against a question that refuses to leave? The first step is recognition. If a thought keeps circling in your mind and it began with someone else's words, mark it. Name it. Say to yourself, "This is not mine." By tracing it back, you weaken its grip. Jung emphasized that awareness transforms shadow into light. Once you recognize the seed, you can choose not to water it. The second step is containment. Not every question deserves an answer. Some questions exist only to pull energy. You are free to let them remain unanswered. When you refuse to chase meaning in every word, you protect your strength. The manipulator thrives on your restlessness. Peace comes when you stop feeding the cycle. The third step is filling your mind with your own questions, those that truly serve you. Instead of dwelling on what was planted, ask yourself, what do I need to feel whole? Or what choice brings me closer to freedom? Jung believed that directing attention toward authentic inner questions leads to individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself. By choosing your own questions, you replace the foreign voice with your true one. Finally, remember this truth. Genuine care does not plant seeds of unrest. Real interest leaves you with clarity, not confusion. If someone's words echo in your mind like a haunting riddle, it is not love. It is a hook. Jung's wisdom shows that the psyche can release such hooks the moment they are seen. What was silent manipulation becomes visible, and visibility dissolves its hold. The silent question that stays in your mind is powerful, because it hides as your own thought. But once you trace it back, you see it for what it is, a strategy. And the moment you see it, it loses its weight. Awareness returns you to yourself. No borrowed question can guide your life when your own voice is strong. In that clarity, the shadow fades, and what remains is freedom. The freedom to think, to choose, and to be fully your own.